Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, The Week in Games, a segment when I cover the games of the week. I do it every week except for the weeks that I don't. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. We're getting into the Christmas season. I have just finished the Christmas Buyer's Guide. If you haven't checked those 4 parts out, those were rolling out over the course of a few days. I've realized that I don't want to... I noticed that if I send a lot of stuff in a short amount of time or I post it, that I tend to lose people, and I think it's because maybe they feel, I don't know how subscribers work, but maybe there's some spamming going on. I'm like, I don't need to do that. I can just space it out over a couple days. Like, I'm just appreciate people being here. So anyway, check out that if you're interested in Christmas buyer's guides. Also, as always in the comments, any suggestions you guys have of games that you think people would like for Christmas that I missed, definitely give it a whirl. Because as far as Christmas games go, you never know what's going to be the next Teddy Ruxpin or Cabbage Patch Kid, or I guess this year it's the Hatchimals Wow Lala Corn collection. Google searched that 3 times fast. And noticed I have a non-squeaking chair. My wife is so pleased. I bit the bullet and did it. So anyway, that's all my fun and frolicky and not so relevant news. Let's get to the real news. Okay. You can never have too much of a good thing until you've had too much of a good thing. But in the meantime, there is Codenames Simpsons to add to the fray of Codenames Disney, Codenames everything, Codenames Broccoli. But it's on the horizon, and honestly, Codenames is a fun game. I like it. I like playing it with different groups, and why not have a few new words? So the other thing is Board Game Geek Secret Santa 2019 is in full motion. If you haven't had a chance to sign up yet, it's a little bit too late, but in general, I've already got my Secret Santa gift. I'm actually even doing a review of that game and sort of a part thank you, part review of the game, and so that'll be coming up later this week as well. Wingspan, the expansion, has arrived. I just received it. It's the European expansion because I wasn't sure whether they do European or African. I'm hoping the next one's African. We all know why. And finally, The Big Book of Madness was a game I got 5 years ago, and now, 5 years later, it's getting an expansion. That was a long time to wait between expansions, but why not? Anyway, that's it for today on news. Now let's go to my question of the week. Here's a question that's contextual with the times and the season as we head into the Christmas season. What was your first board game you remember playing? And that one is, I'm going to answer that not necessarily with the very first one because there was always checkers and stuff like that. It was the first one that I thought was sort of on the fringes of where we are now or what led to it, and it was Careers. I remember when Christmas morning we got the game of Careers. Actually, it was Christmas Eve. We got Careers, and my sister and I played it, and it was a step above, and so it really got me kind of piqued in my interest that, hey, games are fun. And I realized, one, that it was a game that was fun to play with people, and two, there were no games for just me. And since I was such a solo child and spent most of my childhood alone, it was kind of a frustration point where I had all these ideas for games and nobody to play them with. Later on, when I graduated and my parents went off to, I think, Alaska for a long trip, I ended up spending some of my money, my from whatever, to get Onslaught, D-Day to the Rhine. That was the first war game I ever played. And I was so excited to have my friends come over. They thought it was going to be really cool. And then they looked at the board and realized they didn't have any interest at all. They were thinking more like go out and party. So I never did get a chance to play that one with somebody, and I think my parents threw it away in the end later on. But there's my sad answer to your questions. But that was my first board game. I'm curious what other people's first, like the first board game that was really sort of significant in sort of helping you get into the mode that there are board games out there that aren't just Monopoly and checkers. Not that Monopoly is bad. Checkers is checkers. So with that, let's get to my 3 games. Okay. Dungeon Champions. This is an expansion, a little tiny expansion. It's only like 12, $14 that adds a couple of heroes and extra cards to Dungeon Alliance, which I think was mentioned in my Christmas list as something that I thought was a nice sort of Diablo-like beat 'em up slash slash through a dungeon thing. That came at a fortuitous time. Looking forward to incorporating that into Dungeon Alliance. Next is Lincoln, for no thematic reason at all, but Lincoln is a game by Martin Wallace that has not gotten a lot of attention the way his others have. It's a tug of war. It's not a war game, not at all. It's a tug of war between the Confederacy and the Union that it's sort of like a deck destruction game where you have your deck as time goes on, like the deck, the cards that get expended for the Confederates cards, they get weaker and weaker cards. The Union gets stronger and stronger cards, and so you have sort of your different motivations as the Union or the Confederacy on how you want to approach the game and how you want to like save versus use for this tug of war of ownership of the eastern seaboard of the United States. And finally, here's an oldie but goodie, Pandemic Legacy. Honestly, notice I haven't even opened it yet. Yes, that's how far behind the times I am. I've never been a huge fan of Pandemic, and I wasn't exactly certain how I would handle stuff where you have to play it through once and throw it away. So I'm holding out hope that I can get the right group that will commit to playing it start to finish. Because right now, I think a lot of people would want to, and they'd say they would, but then it's time to actually have people continue to do it after the first couple of weeks, and I didn't want to spend all that money and have it fizzle out, and I don't want to play it by myself. So this is one game that may or may not get played in the next few years, depending on whether I find an audience that really wants to play it like all the way through. But we'll see. Anyway, that's it. Let's get to Alphabet Soup. All right, Alphabet Soup. This time we're at the G's. We just finished all the letters before G. Oh, G's. And so now we're going to talk about the games that I have that start with the letter G, that fit in the various categories that I have prescribed before. So the top of the line game that starts with a G for me continues to be Gloomhaven. I've gotten more playtime out of that. I have 2 copies of it, both of which I've farmed out to other people to play. It is dungeon questing in a box, and it does it really, really well. I played it solo. It was decent. I played it with multiple groups. That's where it shines. That's the game that just continues to be top of the line. Runner-up for that would be the Gaia Project, which is Terra Mystica, but interesting to me. It takes everything that was a little bit obtuse for me to understand about Terra Mystica and makes it into this real space thing that makes sense, and I like it. I like it a lot. It's very thinky, and it has an excellent single-player solo component. So, bottom of the barrel, not really much of a contest. Gardens of the Alhambra is not my favorite. Not my favorite at all. I just shake my head and move my chair. I'm so unhappy with it. Gardens of the Alhambra was a cash-in for Alhambra, which was a great, great game that I think is still ahead of its time in some ways, which manages to craft tile laying with multiple forms of currency and do it in a way that anybody can play and feel good about. Gardens of the Alhambra was this tile matching game that just sucked. I didn't like any of it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was going to be a great Christmas present for my wife who loved Alhambra, and then we played it and we're like, where's the game part? You lied to me. Get me a better present. She didn't really say that, but... And then the other one is Gauntlet of Fools. This was the first game after Donald X had finished Dominion, and so following along, I'm like, well, Dominion must be good, so Gauntlet of Fools must be good. It must be, but it wasn't. It mustn't be. It was very scattered kind of play. The idea was cool, and I think the idea is where it probably should have remained. Came out of nowhere. No surprise. Great Western Trail. Hadn't done any of the Mombasa games or anything else from the designer before. Great Western Trail was an absolute hoot, an iconic explosion of overwhelmingness that just fit into this awesome Great Western theme game that just hit it out of the park. The Riches to Rags game is Grimslingers, which started off really highly praised, and I got it and went like, wow, the artwork on this is so gritty and westerny and slingy and gunny and grimmy. And then I played a few games, and I'm like, insaney, mundane, and yeah, not my favorite in the end. The meaty, mighty Manwich game, The Gallerist. This is another Vital Lacerda. If I say Vital Lacerda, you're going to know it's probably got the word meaty, mighty Manwich game after it. The Gallerist is you with an art gallery, and again, it has 2 or 3 simple actions that then just explode into like 900 different things going on in the board and sub actions and reactive actions and stuff. So that's that one. I actually think that was a harder one for me to learn than Escape Plan, but not as much as some of the other games. Test of Time. This is going to be a surprise to some. The Grim Masquerade is a game I continually bring to party atmospheric games, and people continually like it. A little bit of if you just got casual gamers, it takes the first round is like, I think I get it, I think I get it, I think I get it, I think I got it. And after that, it's just so delightfully pleasant with the grim forest, grim fairy tales kind of theme. You can teach it to anybody. It's meaty enough that you do get a nice deduction feel for people who don't like trying to be deductionists. And so that one just continues to get pulled out. The Comeback Tour, this is a game that I think should be redone. And this is a surprise because it's a newer game. It's called Gizmos. And Gizmos is gizmo making, contraption making game done really cleverly with nice marbles and a big thing that marbles roll out of. I think I would love to see that redone with more, but not more complexity, because it actually wound up being more complex than it first appears, but just more incredible, like Rube Goldberg kind of things that you can do. I think it can be reimagined in a way that I could make it easier for people to get into and more complex and more interesting later on. So great game, but could be a mega great game. So anyway, honorable mentions theme, I have to go with The Grizzled. When you have a game where you're not allowed to talk and it's all about despair and it's about surviving and it's about hoping you can make it through this horrible, terrible experience, that's thematic. And nobody plays The Grizzled like a cartoon. You play it, and if you play it respectfully, you're going to see that it's intended to really sort of set home for you that war is sucky. And I think that one definitely gets theme. Artwork-wise, Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones game of the second edition is a game I hardly ever pull out because you need everybody playing it. You need everybody knowing what they're doing when they're playing it if you're going to do it right. And that one just has artwork that just fits so perfectly with how I envision the Game of Thrones universe working. So, and that's what we have for the weekend games. Went out a little long this time, but what do? Well, you shorten it up. Anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.